Good morning and happy Wednesday. Welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom to start your day off well. And I'm hearing tons of birds outside this morning. It's still dark out, but they are quite happy. So that makes for a nice start to a day when you get bird song first thing. So we have a chapter in Tosha today. Good morning, Nancy. Welcome. You're the first one popping on today. Glad to have you here. And so those of you who have the book can dig out your outrageous openness, because that's where we're going to be today. Good morning, Gwen. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. And Joe Neal, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Everybody's starting to roll in. So this is good. Good morning, Beth. My little counter says I have 2 people here. I know I've said hello to 4 of you at least. So, yeah, counter's a litling behind. Oh, it's starting to catch up now. The joys of tech, right? So, let's do a little grounding and centering this morning. Start by grounding your feet flat on the floor. If your butt's in a chair, just ground through your butt. If you're laying in bed, imagine there's roots coming out of your entire back all the way along your whole body. And every exhale drops those roots deeper into Mother Earth. Every inhale fills you up with divine energy. So let's breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I miss breathing deeply. Good morning, CJ. Glad you're here. Sometimes I avoid it a little bit. Hello, Abigail. Welcome. Because breathe in deeply and start hacking a lung up. So, yeah. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just grounding and settling. Taking up your space here on Mother Earth. Taking all the space you need. Because truly, there's more than enough space for all of us here. Hoarding makes it difficult, but imagine, expand into, there's more than enough to go around. Of any resource, there's more than enough to go around. So, Tosha, outrageous openness, letting the divine take the lead. We need to practice this daily, sometimes minutely, because the more we do so, the more of that kind of energy, allowing, turning over, being in flow, being a magnet for what it is that you want and need, the more that happens, the more that happens. So for those of you who like to follow along in the book, in my book, it's page 154. It's called Celestial Clockwork. Celestial Clockwork. And there's a quote by Anonymous. Be grateful for the karma you don't have. I've thought that at times. I've watched somebody do something that was, and thought, man, I'm glad I'm not getting that karma. So we want to be aware of how the things we do influence others and our world, etc. And one of the places I learned this the best was when I owned the motel in Rapid River, Michigan, and had connection with a lot of people who are indigenous to this land. And they have a very different perspective on the land. It's a brother or a sister that they coexist with and that they value as a sentient being. And when someone would put down tobacco before harvesting something, that was like, wow, this is such a mindful, connected, interwoven process, a whole different ball of wax than what most white people are taught. You want something, you go buy it. You want something, you take it. You want something, you cut it down, you harvest it, whatever it is. We're not attuned to the flow of the world, and so oftentimes we're kind of heavy-handed and extractive rather than in flow with what's meant to come our way, etc. So this particular chapter, I think, is good for our times right now, because how many of us are asking, why is this happening? What the hell was that? And very confused by the level of seeming ignorance, the level of abusiveness, the level of extractiveness that's going on in our world right now. So see what you can take out of this particular reading that may put some things in perspective, that when we look at them with our logical mind, we're like, I can't understand this at all. But if you look at it with a bigger picture mind, and maybe even a Kali energy mind, the goddess of destruction, the goddess that destroys in order for there to be creation, sometimes things get so entrenched that they have to be blown up. My thing with that is I hate seeing the collateral damage that comes out of that kind of thing. My hope would be for humanity that we begin to get a clue and recognize when things are becoming calcified and make those changes in kinder, gentler ways, as opposed to blowing stuff up. But we shall see. Human beings have an interesting track record. So, celestial clockwork. Be grateful for the karma you don't have. The other day I was driving home when I hit what in my small town was an unusual major traffic jam. The Park Street Bridge had opened to let through a large ship at the same time the last of rush hour traffic hit. A line of cars dragged for blocks with no escape route. I watched the people around me grow more agitated by the minute. Anybody watching the people around them grow more agitated by the minute? I decided to just let go, take a deep breath, and inwardly say, now listen to these words, you guys. My life is unfolding in divine timing. All delays are beneficial. I'm always at the right place at the right time. Isn't that wild? All delays are beneficial. I'm always at the right place at the right time. Growing up as a really impatient child, you know, Mars conjunct with Saturn in Sagittarius, this statement has really altered my life. My life is unfolding in divine timing. All delays are beneficial. I'm always at the right place at the right time. So I turned up some Lady Gaga, wrote in my journal, and chilled. In about 20 minutes, I was on my way. When I got home, I saw the blessing. Again, there's hidden blessings in a lot of the crap. 4 squad cars and 2 ambulances packed my street. 20 minutes earlier, a drunk driver had skidded out of control in front of my building, bashing like a pinball into 7 different vehicles, one by one. Good morning, Angie. Welcome. Glad you're here. Without the delay, I might have been right in the line of fire. My friend Tom told a similar story that happened to him in reverse. He had taken his beloved boyfriend home to meet his family in Buffalo for the first time. All had gone reasonably well. Even his rather fundamentalist father was uncommonly gracious and kind. But the night before their scheduled departure, the dad suddenly went mad. He decided the sinners could not be in his home a moment longer. They had to go. While his loving mom stood by apologizing and crying, Tom and his partner threw their luggage in the car in a frenzy, speeding out of town like a band on the run. It was, he reminisced tartly, quite the exciting little psychodrama. They decided to drive all night to get back to the enlightened world of Manhattan. Later that evening, they saw the cosmic handiwork. A freak blizzard had gathered from nowhere, hitting Buffalo 2 days early. The news showed cars abandoned by the side of the New York Thruway like empty carcasses buried under 3 feet of snow. The National Guard was called out. Emergency shelters were set up. If my dad hadn't gone stark raving ballistic, we would have been trapped. The storm front was precisely where we would have been driving. The universe expelled us at the perfect moment. I love that. Thank you, Gwen. I appreciate that. I love that, and I love that line. All delays are beneficial. Even just adopting that little piece of it would make such a difference in my life, and my guess is in other people's lives. So the last sentence here. You just never know what blessings an obstacle or problem might be creating, and what larger nightmares you might totally be spared. So I always think about that when I'm driving, because I tend to be a fast driver. If I ever get pulled over and get a ticket, I always feel like I'm way overdue. So eat the pain, because I created it. Anywho, when I'm driving and someone pulls out in front of me, I live in Wisconsin, right? There are various times where farm machinery pulls out in front of me. Oh my God, he's got a baler and a hay wagon. This is going to take forever, right? Excuse me. But now, for probably the past 15, 20 years, I've looked at it as that's a delay that maybe is preventing something not pleasant down the road. Maybe I would have been in an accident had I continued going at the rate I was going. But I view when someone pulls out, especially when they pull out and it seems very deliberate, I always frame it as, thank you. Thank you for slowing me down. Thank you for, protecting me. I view it as a protection. Try that on. See how that works for you. It's a really interesting perspective shift. So what if we do some perspective shifts about the things that are going on right now? What if we frame it as many of our systems have gotten so calcified and not working well that some of the very untoward stuff that's happening is designed to decalcify, chip up, break up the stuff that wasn't working. Is what's being put in place going to be better? Highly doubtful. But it may make room for the things that need to come in. And someone said yesterday, and I thought, yeah, spot on. She said, she's in a very small town where I used to live. And she said, maybe what this means is neighbors are going to have to step up to help neighbors. And she, as a neighbor, and her partner they're married, yes, her wife, are very contributory to the community. They do a ton of stuff for the community. And so she was just speaking her truth that perhaps this was going to mean that others in the community begin to step up and help community members. I can see that needing to be the case, that one of my friends was talking about a new worker that just got hired at her facility, and he's foreign born, does not speak English yet, and this is his first job in the U.S. Is he going to need support? Hell yes. People helping people helping animals, people helping our environment. Maybe a lot of this is going to move from, and interesting, I was reading in my book yesterday, that it used to be how cities would grow. I thought this was a brilliant concept, and it makes sense that why we're having difficulty right now. So here it is, in a nutshell. When America was very undeveloped, and I'm not saying development's a good thing or a bad thing, but we developed, right? So when someone decided to plop a town somewhere, they weren't thinking in terms of, I'm building a town. They were thinking in terms of, I'm building a shack so I have a place to live. Then someone else comes along and goes, I'll build my shack beside your shack So we've got a little bit of mutual support. Third person comes along, I'll build a shack also. Pretty soon we have a row of shacks, right? Then, because shacks are shacks, they begin to deteriorate. So maybe one person tears down a shack and builds a clapboard 2-story building. As the others begin to deteriorate, they do the same thing. At that level, there's no roads, there's no sidewalks, there's no infrastructure, right? Because the cheapness of the land and the cheapness of the buildings don't warrant a bunch of infrastructure. As they go, then a third iteration comes along. Maybe one of the clapboard buildings burns down. And so they build a brick house. Things are ratcheting up. Can you see how this is going? So then, as we get the whole row of brick houses, they decide, well, we need a sidewalk. So they put in a boardwalk, kind of a sidewalk. And we need a road. So maybe they put some gravel and start a road. All of a sudden, a bank comes along and goes, this would be a nice little place to have a bank. And they build a bank. Over time, the public stuff, the roads, the street lights, the sewer, the water, all that stuff comes in after the infrastructure warrants it, right? Once you've got enough houses of a certain kind, then it warrants having a street light. How many of us know the towns where they don't have any street lights? All the development level there warrants is a couple of stop signs. So that's how it always used to be over millennia, right? After World War II, what we did was flip that around. So now we build whole areas of a town at once. We call it a subdivision, right? So within a couple of years, every lot on this subdivision is built up, right? What happens? That means they're all going to go to hell at the same time within a couple of years span. It's like building a house and you buy all new appliances, right? They all start dying at once. Whereas if you did, okay, I'm going to buy a refrigerator, and 3 years later you buy a stove, and 5 years later you buy a washer and dryer, everything's not going to die at once, right? So there was value to that build incrementally kind of approach. Now we do the build a whole chunk of a town at once, and what that means is not only are all the houses going to be falling apart at the same time, and what happens then is the rich people move out, and the people with less resources are left there struggling to try to keep this area of town afloat. And cities have gotten in over their heads by putting all of this infrastructure in. Okay, so we have to put through street, curb, gutter, water, the whole lights, the whole shebang all at once. And literally within a short span of time, 40 years hence, all of that's going to start falling apart at once. And cities aren't prepared for, we've got to redo all the roads in this whole subdivision. So, interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. At least interesting to me. I don't know. Might have bored you. Sorry. But, again, think about all of this stuff as unfolding. I'm going to go back to her words here. In divine right timing and divine right order, my life is unfolding in divine timing. All delays are beneficial. Gwen put it in the feed here. I'm always at the right place at the right time. The only time we end up messed up is when we allow the ego to drive our bus instead of relying on our heart and soul. Okay, what am I being guided to do? So I got one of those kicks in the teeth yesterday and need to be making some changes. There's often the choice between I can stick with what isn't working. What were the words? Diminishment. It was something about, let me think. I think I wrote it in my journal. Yes. Do I keep the life that I know is going to diminish, Or do I say yes to what's calling to me? Do I keep the life I know that I know is going to diminish over time? It becomes calcified, it stops growing. Or do I say yes to what's calling to me? I just thought that was so profound. My coffee group did a card reading, and it was it was the wildest reading ever. There were 5 of us on the call, and this particular card deck has 9 blank cards in it. I don't know how many cards it is overall, but 9 blank cards. The odds of 3 of the 5 of us pulling those blank cards are astronomical. That's what happened. I got a blank card, then there was an animal card, then a blank card, then an animal card, and then a blank card. And the 2 animal cards were very interesting. The first one was about the groundedness, the nurturing of Mother Earth. And the second one was about transformation. It was a wild reading. It was a really wild reading. So, what I say to you in closing is, rather than fighting what is, certainly we need to stand up and speak truth to power, but rather than fighting what is and hemorrhaging our precious energy, focusing on the train wrecks, let's look at what do we want and how do we create that and what's needed in order to lay the groundwork for the things we want to see becoming reality. That's where we need to be putting our energy. What do we want? Have an awesome day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you are capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.